So the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, so far my speed test is pretty much undefeated, but it's going to have a true test today against one of the other powerhouses in the industry right now, the OnePlus 13. So let's find out which one comes out on top in the speed test. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's go ahead and begin this speed test with a boot up in 3, 2, go, and see which one can get there first. Now, both of these are rocking the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. That is a pretty big powerhouse chipset, but the one for Galaxy is custom overclocked for that phone. The one on the right is going to be the standard 8 Elite. However, OnePlus has 16 gigabytes of RAM. The Samsung only has 12 gigabytes of RAM. But the OnePlus actually did not turn on faster, so the win on the boot up is going to go to the Samsung here over the OnePlus. Do keep in mind they both do have the same GPU, and they both do have gaming modes that you can help enhance your gaming as well. But the Samsung takes the boot up test. All right, so let's go ahead and do a fingerprint test here. We're going to test the ultrasonic fingerprints to see which one does this quicker. And it looks like the OnePlus. Let's go ahead and do this again. Yeah, the animation a little faster there on the right. Both of them now ultrasonic fingerprints. But either way you go, they're going to do very good. And once you actually, if you actually unlock them, they look about the same. I missed it there on the Samsung, but they look about the same here generally. Both of them also do have face unlock where you can just kind of bypass the face just like that. This one I have on swipe, but you could also put swipe on the Samsung as well. Either way you go here, those are not going to be your most secure methods. Another point I noticed about these phones is that the OnePlus actually has a bigger punch hole than the Samsung phone. Also has what appears to be slightly thicker bezels, but also we do have a slight dip and curve on the OnePlus on the edges. But yeah, getting into these phones is almost exactly the same experience now, and their fingerprints are in very similar locations right there. But the OnePlus has different animations versus the Samsung. They just look a little bit different when unlocking. Now, when it comes to the general software, I'm really loving both of these products this year. They both do have vertical app drawers. They're both very smooth when it comes to the day-to-day performance. Oxygen OS really improved the animations and just kind of the fluidity of the Oxygen OS over here on the OnePlus 13. Also for Samsung, we have the smoothest performance we've ever seen with the One UI 7 over here. So definitely really nice. Also some updated icons and things of that sort. But you used to think that Samsung was probably not as smooth as some competitors, but nowadays that's no longer the case. And we also do have like better animations as well, non-linear. And both of them just really day-to-day performance. It's going to be hard. You're going to be hard pressed to see a difference. You really are, just for like kind of going through. I will say though that Samsung's One UI 7 on the S25 Ultra seems to be a snappier feel, and the OnePlus is going for a visually more pleasing feel. So kind of feels a little bit more animation effects. Like you kind of just see like a little bit more of a fly-in effect. Just the way you kind of navigate it kind of has a little bit of a visually pleasing effect, whereas Samsung just feels like raw speed with some smoother animations. So let me know your thoughts on that take right there, but you can't go wrong with general performance either way. So we have arrived at the app test portion of this video, and everything is closed out for both phones. So let's go ahead and begin with calendar here. And you can see that was faster on the Samsung. It is Samsung Calendar versus the Google, but that's what's on the OnePlus. Swiping out, let's go into clock, and I couldn't notice a massive difference there. I mean, you might have to go into 0.5x, slow it down just to see maybe if one has a slightly faster feel. I feel like the animation flies out faster on the OnePlus, but it looks better on the Samsung, the way that animation comes out. Let's go into calculator, and you can see no disparities there, really. Let's go into weather, and you could see basically the same, although they do look a little bit different. Which one do you tend to prefer? Drop your comments down below. Let's swipe up out of there, and we'll go into news. And let's go over here in the technology section, and you'll see maybe Samsung. By the way, the S25 Ultra pre-orders have been shipping already, so if you're expecting next week, you might be in for a early 1 week surprise. Let's go ahead and swipe up out of here, and we'll go into Play Store. Maybe a little faster on the Samsung. We'll go into games. Again, almost no difference. While the Samsung is an overclocked version of the 8 Elite, in day-to-day performance, it's probably zero difference. Let's go into X over here. But it's not just about performance here. You know, with the OnePlus, you are getting a cheaper price point with more RAM, but with the Samsung, you're getting probably a much better overall camera system. So you're paying for that. Bigger battery on the right. Either way you go here, you do get really good overall specs. Let's go into Instagram, and you can see faster there on the left. And we'll go over here to the profile page. As we swipe through, you'll see that both of them tend to, the OnePlus is loading this faster, tend to have a little bit of a different feel than like something like iOS, but definitely they do pretty well. Let's go into Amazon, and you'll see that was faster on the left. Also, the overclock CPU is probably going to matter more in the gaming department. So if you want a game, I probably would go with the Samsung for that area, but the sustained performance I'm seeing might actually be better on the OnePlus. So, you know, you got to pick and choose. Do you want the overclock CPU, or do you want the potentially better overall, maybe less throttling of the OnePlus, you know, when it comes to gaming? I mean, either way, you're winning this year, bro. Like, these phones are ridiculous now. Let's go into Groupon. And when I say ridiculous, I mean in performance. Let's go into categories. There, you know, I feel like a lot of people are saying, well, the upgrades are not much anymore. They're not much if you're coming from the prior year. If you're coming from like 3 years old, they're huge. Let's head up out of here. We'll go into Gemini. So like if you're coming from a phone that was from like 2020, 2021, these are pretty big upgrades. Let's go into Subway Surf. And this is going to pop open first there for the left. And as we play here, pretty much the same. Both of them do have similar size displays as well. Although I can definitely tell the anti-reflective coating on the Samsung tends to look better in person. It looks less glare, which is definitely noticeable. However, the flicker rate for PWM is higher on the OnePlus. All right, so let's go into Brawl Stars here. See which one can do this first. And it looks to me like whoa, I was gonna say one of them was ahead, but they look to me about the same here. So either way you go, this is not gonna be too difficult for either phone to handle. You're gonna have a good experience here in these casual games. Let's go into 8-Ball Pool. And you'll see both of them do have game modes. We have a gaming engine here. You could swipe over here to turn this one on. And you could tweak around with settings as well. So that's pretty fun. Let's swipe up out of here. We'll go into Dead Sugar 2. And you'll see that launched first for the Samsung. Also, both of them do have really good graphics, like even improved over, like a substantial improvement over last year as well. With the Samsung having a better vapor chamber, and OnePlus always does good with like heat management. So let's go into Race the Sun. And you'll see that this one is going to be first on the left. So Samsung is slight quicker. And you're pretty much good here on both of them when actually in the game. No major issue. Let's go into Real Racing, which is not the fastest loading game on Android phones. Seems like it's better optimized for iOS. But OnePlus is going to take the win on this application right here. Just giving them a wipe down and getting a little dusty. And yeah, OnePlus took the win here for Real Racing 3 as we wait a bit on the Samsung phone right there. And there we go. So that one was actually not very fast on either, but definitely OnePlus on that one. We'll go into Free Fire here, open world. And you'll see over here, this was faster for the Samsung and then the OnePlus. So Samsung strikes back with Free Fire. Let's head up out of here. We'll go into Call of Duty Mobile. And we'll see what happens on this front. Give them another wipe down. And I've played this game on both phones. Neither has breaks a sweat with this game. This game is super fun, by the way. And it looks like OnePlus is taking it here. Or is it going to be Samsung? Nope, it was OnePlus. Oh, actually, I think Samsung was loading all these pop-ups. That's why this one was going straight to the lobby. So that could affect the load time. Multiplayer, though, really fun to play on both of them. Especially if you have some buds, a controller connected to go along with it. It's a really immersive experience. Let's go into 3D Mark. You'll see faster for the Samsung. Geekbench 6, faster for the Samsung. Speed Test, faster for the Samsung. And InShot, also faster for the Samsung. So overall, I think Samsung actually loaded more apps faster than the OnePlus here. So I would say that overclock CPU is definitely helping it a little bit. You'll see it mostly comes on the second cluster at 4.47 gigahertz. This one at 4.32. So that little bit of a boost, that a little bit overclock, definitely helps it feel faster than the competition. So I'd probably give it to Samsung. It's a little bit quicker to load things than the OnePlus 13. So let's head into the RAM management here. 12 gigabytes of RAM. It's one area I would like to see Samsung upgrade next year, going to 16 gigs of RAM. I actually wanted it this year, but we didn't get it. Thankfully though, I haven't actually noticed any slowdowns when it comes to the RAM management. That was reconnecting to another match. It does look like it did reload Brawl Stars as well. We'll see if OnePlus does the same thing. We'll go into Gemini, a little bit of chop there. We'll go into Amazon, Instagram, X, Play Store, News, Weather, Calculator, Clock, and Calendar. So overall, you'll see very fast and updated app switcher. We did see like one, I think it was Brawl Stars popped, and then we had like a little weird thing with Gemini. That was probably because it was reloading the chat. But definitely, I will say that I would like to see 16 gigs of RAM, although it doesn't seem to be struggling too much at all, even with the 12 gigs. All right, so let's see how OnePlus does. One thing I really like is that their animations look really smooth. I also like how I can pull down in portrait mode, even if the game or app is in landscape. I can pretty much pull, except for this one, I could pretty much pull down in most apps, even when they're in landscape. Some of them don't allow me to though, but that one did. And you'll see pretty good. So Brawl Stars did the same thing as it did on Samsung. And Gemini, a little bit choppy on Gemini as well. I think it might be related to it reloading the chat. So yeah, this is basically doing exact same performance as the Galaxy S25 Ultra, even with 16 gigs of RAM. It didn't seem massively different. So you probably won't notice it too much right now in our current state. Maybe down the line, the 16 gigs of RAM will make a difference with the OnePlus, but right now, I don't think it is. But when I say I want it on the Samsung, it's because I'm paying $1,300. I want the top specs. I want 16 to 24 gigabytes of RAM. That's what I want because I'm paying top dollar for it. It's kind of strange that a phone that costs a few $100s less has more RAM than the top of the line. But OnePlus definitely very fast. And I actually think it's a little bit more smooth looking because you can kind of swipe out from the bottom like I showed earlier. Swiping out from the bottom portion of the landscape apps on some of them really makes it feel, well, now it doesn't want to do it, but swiping out from the bottom like that right there makes it feel a little bit smoother to use. And here is the Geekbench scores, and you could see that the Samsung out benchmarks it on single core and on multi-core. Again, the overclock CPU is probably the reason here. So the Samsung has the highest benchmarks I've seen so far on Geekbench for the new 8 Elite chip phones, although I've only tested 2 of them, so there might be some later this year that outperform. I don't know, but right now I really think this is crazy high for both phones. These scores are ridiculous for day-to-day performance, especially for smartphones. This is incredible. Now, when it comes to 3D Mark, I actually was able to get a higher score on the OnePlus, and again, I think that comes down to maybe throttling a little on the Samsung when it gets to a certain point, but it's almost nothing. You'll see it's a 1 FPS difference, but it is a difference. So the OnePlus wins that test, but you can see when it comes to how much they score better than other devices, both are better than 98% of devices on the market. So these phones are both basically neck and neck in terms of the performance. So very good in that respect. You'll see the frame rates average between 16 FPS and 49 on the Samsung here, and 13 and 49, with the battery drop only 1% on both phones. And in terms of the temperature, it actually looks like the OnePlus was able to stay a little bit cooler at 34 degrees Celsius versus 35 degrees Celsius right there. So definitely, I gotta say, either way you go, you're not losing out. These things are ridiculous. And if I reran the benchmarks, they could be spitting out different results. So either way you go, you're winning. So let's go ahead and launch the cameras in 3, 2, go. And that was faster for the OnePlus. I always like to do this a few times. And yeah, faster for the OnePlus. It could be because Samsung has a huge feature set in there, but I'm not giving it no credit. The OnePlus has won the camera launch, but what about the actual, hold on, we had the flash on that one. Let me go ahead and do that again. 3, 2, snap, pretty much the same in that respect. But I would take a little bit slower of a launch on the Samsung to have the overall better camera system, which I believe this one is that between these two. Although you can't really go wrong either, because for general performance and flagship cameras, I think you're going to like both. You know what you're getting into if you get OnePlus, though. You're not getting the absolute top of the line camera in the whole industry, but you are getting the Hasselblad color science and some really good value for money. So that's how I would sum it up. Samsung's still sitting at the king of the hill, the top of the line, however you want to call it. OnePlus is still a value king. It's the value performance king. If you want to save some money, you're winning. That's the bottom line. Either phone you get, you're winning. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.